Welcome to the Vault XL. This is my third live. Thank you for joining me. Channel 8 News Las Vegas is the source.
Prosecutors are disclosing more evidence in the Tupac murder case that they say implicates Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, the man accused of orchestrating the shooting. In new documents, prosecutors say they confirmed Davis's wife made a hotel reservation on the Strip at the time of Tupac Shakur's death. They also say Davis spoke to police as early as 2008. A judge will hear arguments next week to determine once again if Davis should be released on house arrest.
I'll bring you an update to that information next week. I believe he should stay in jail, and I'm praying he stays in jail. Amen. Let's go to the belly of the beast and see what's going on pertaining to this new evidence. Thank you for joining me. TheSun.com is the source. Self-proclaimed Compton Crip gang lord, 60, has been in custody since September on a $750,000 bail. A Las Vegas judge denied Davis's release in June after the jailed gangster was able to secure the $750,000 bond to be freed while he awaits trial. Now prosecutors said they've uncovered decades-old evidence that places Davis in Las Vegas September 7, 1996, the night Tupac was killed in a drive-by shooting. Investigators said a room at the then Monte Carlo Resort, now the Park MGM, was booked under Davis's wife's name, Paula Clemens, according to court documents obtained by the U.S. Sun. Officials also learned that a room at the Excalibur Hotel and Casino was reserved under Davis's nephew's name, Orlando Anderson, the suspected triggerman who fired the fatal shots at Tupac. Las Vegas Metro Police detectives were combing through hotel records for reservations booked under the names of known gang members, court documents read. However, Clemens' reservations did not raise eyebrows until now, since she was not a known Southside Crip, according to court docs. Davis's lawyers previously argued in their motion to dismiss the charges that there was no evidence that placed him in Las Vegas on the night of the murder. Back in time. A legal insider in Las Vegas disclosed to the U.S. Sun on Wednesday that prosecutors were scouring through any paperwork or surveillance footage from the Monte Carlo Hotel. The source said investigators knew Davis had stayed at the resort many times in the past. They are liaising with the staff to search through guest booking records to establish whether there is evidence that Keefe or any of his Crip associated were booked in, the insider said. The legal insider said investigators are treating the case like it happened in 2024, not 28 years ago. They even looked at receipts at bars and restaurants on site to see whether his name is anywhere in sight. These were the days before many places operated digital systems, so there is so many hours involved in looking at old paperwork. It has been challenging to locate surveillance footage from the 1990s. Cameras from the Monte Carlo, MGM, and other spots were never properly logged or examined, so that process is laborious. But the DA knows that a couple of seconds is enough to be a home run for the prosecution. The source said prosecutors have re-examined the original homicide files with a fresh set of eyes and have interviewed every person named in the files. Those probes have led to some fresh leads and opportunities to speak with potential new witnesses who have never come forward to police, the insider added. Conversations are ongoing with several people who have connections to Keefe and his gang. What emerges from that remains secret at the moment. Why it's taken so long for justice in the Tupac Shakur case. This is by Emma Perry, Sun's senior reporter, who has been reporting on the Tupac murder for the past 10 years. Tupac fans have been waiting for justice for the iconic rapper, almost 28 years. Finally, in September 2023, there appeared to be progress with the arrest of Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, a former Southside Crip gangster from Compton, LA, who had been telling the world for years that he and his fellow gang soldiers were responsible for the hit. I've been reporting on the case for several years, and it always appeared pretty cut and dry. Keefe has spent the past decade gaining notoriety by boasting about his alleged involvement in the shooting. Now he was finally getting what he deserves. But despite Keefe running his mouth for years, I now believe a guilty verdict in November's trial is far from guaranteed. Keefe describes in a great detail in his memoir, Compton Street Legend, what went down the night Pac was shot, extracts from which the U.S. Sun has published. He claimed that he was offered $1 million by rapper Diddy to handle Tupac and Suge Knight, and when he and his Crip gangsters came across the pair driving near the Strip in Las Vegas on September 7, 1996, Keefe alleged he passed the gun to his nephew Orlando Baby Lane Anderson, who took the shot. Keefe said if Pac had been on his side, I would have blasted. Keefe repeated the claims multiple times over the years on YouTube channels, documentaries, and even in take confessions to police when he believed he could not be prosecuted. In one confession to the LAPD, Keefe appeared completely remorseless, telling detectives, "We didn't give a FUCK. The ambulance for Tupac was parked right here next to us. That SHIT was as funny as a mother FUCKER." The Sun has been publishing stories about Keefe's self-confessed involvement in the crime since 2018. I sent my links to his confessions to Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, asking them why this man had not been arrested yet. They would thank me for the info, but say that they could not comment because the case was still active. From the outside, it looked like no action was being taken at all. We spoke to former detectives involved in the case and documentary makers, who all felt utterly frustrated at the lack of progress in the case. We even published a plea from the former LAPD detective Greg Kading, who had probed the murders, urging Las Vegas cops to arrest Keefe back in 2020. For years, the case appeared to have been forgotten and ignored, to be left forever unsolved. But finally, in summer of 2023, we got word from our sources that there had been a huge development in the case. A secret grand jury was due to be held on whether or not Keefe should be indicted. I was dubious at first, but around the same time, a house in Henderson, Nevada, linked to Keefe was raided in July as part of the Tupac investigation. Things were heating up. Later that summer, behind closed doors, jurors listened to hours of testimony from former cops, detectives, coroners involved in the Tupac case, and gangsters and associates of Keefe's and Pac's from back in the day. They were shown graphic photos of Tupac's bullet-ridden body. After days of evidence, they decided there was enough evidence to prosecute Keefe. Once the secret documents were released, I pored over the transcripts. While interesting, many of the witnesses were telling stories they heard secondhand. None of the prosecution witnesses had a clear look at who shot Pac. One witness, Devontae Lee, claimed another gangster called Big Dre took the shot, not Orlando. Maybe things weren't as clear cut as I first thought. Keefe was then arrested September 30th, 2023 at his home. Body cam footage we obtained from the scene showed Keefe bragging to cops even as he was handcuffed in the back of the police car, telling officers he was involved in the biggest case in Las Vegas history. Now, this sounds crazy. Who would tell that to the cops? And why would you even be talking about it anyway years ago? There's mention, of course, that, he confessed this to investigators because he had got offered a plea in some other case, and he knew that he took some type of alpha plea or something. So that's why they didn't convict him allegedly in this case about Tupac. I don't know what's really true or not. Following Keefe's multiple appearances in court, he seems to have lost much of that bravado and now cuts a sad, lonely figure. Suffering from various health problems as a result of cancer, he's struggling to cope with the brutalities of jail life and can't get together enough money to afford his bail. He feels some of his old Southside Crip associates, men he handed wads of cash to in his glory days, have just abandoned him. Keefe is now desperate to get out of jail, and his defense stems is leaning on his claim that he completely made up his involvement in the Tupac murder for fame and money. He saw other people cashing in on the murder, so he thought he would too. He reckons his confessions to police were all lies. He made it up because he was under a plea deal and thought it would help him beat his other charges. So that goes back to what I mentioned earlier about allegedly him getting some type of alpha plea or whatever, and prosecution never came about for Tupac because naturally those charges he had were in California and not Las Vegas. And according to his lawyer, Carl Arnold, he wasn't even in Las Vegas on the night of the shooting. Arnold remains convinced he will see his client walk free, and their secret weapon could be former Death Row Records boss Suge. As the only other person still alive from either car, Suge, currently in prison for a fatal hit and run, would be a key witness. Suge is the only person still alive who knows what went down. He saw the shooter. While he said he won't testify at the November trial, Suge has claimed in a TMZ interview from prison that Orlando was not the shooter, which again throws into doubt Keefe's version of events. Keefe and his lawyer are hoping they might be able to change his mind and persuade him to testify for the defense, and Suge holds the power to blow prosecution's case apart. And if Keefe walks free, will there ever be justice for Pac? Keefe D. Bond denied. In late June, Davis's defense attorney fought to have Judge Carly Kearney validate the defendant's $112,500 bond premium so he could be released on house arrest while he awaited trial. However, Kearney ruled that Davis failed to prove his bond was obtained through legal sources. Music executive Cass Jones, who goes by WAC 100, appeared in court via video conference and confirmed he paid the bond premium for Davis as a gift. Jones claimed that there was no contract or financial agreement with Davis in exchange for bailing him out. But prosecutors ripped the claims when they played a YouTube interview of Jones and podcaster Vlad TV, where he said he would bail out Davis to do a TV series on his life. Prosecutors also played jailhouse phone calls between Davis and Jones where they were heard discussing a contract. You got to remember, this SHIT can set you up for the rest of your life, Jones is heard saying on the call. I will get you out and then we'll sit down and talk about all that. Judge Kearney moved to deny Davis's bail request. While Mr. Jones testified he was bonding out Mr. Davis because Mr. Davis was fighting cancer and had been a pillar of the community, his previous interview with Vlad TV suggested another motive, the judge wrote in her ruling. Davis has pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder. He's expected to go on trial for Tupac's murder November 4th. Davis is facing life in prison if convicted. Dwayne Davis. Bail application was denied by a judge last month. Wow, wow, wow. So you see, what type of fool would sit up and talk on jail phones about contracts and TV shows and series, knowing that they would be listening? And you think that somebody would not take that information out of a jail? Come on now. WAC 100, you can't be that stupid. As for Keefe D, is he involved in the murder of Tupac Shakur? His nephew Orlando, who's no longer alive? Suge Knight is never going to testify. He's made that clear. He has made that clear in commentary that even with his worst enemy, he would not rat on them because, as he has said, he does not believe in sending someone to jail, to prison, whether he liked you or not, because prison, it's a terrible place to be. And I heard another man say the same thing in a reality show I was watching yesterday morning, that even if I don't like you, hate you, I wouldn't rat on you to send you to prison or give information that could send you to prison. Very interesting. So I guess there are some street men out there with that type of mentality. I may be with the person that got murdered, but I'm still not going to be a rat and tell what I heard, what I saw. This was uploaded 3 months ago pertaining to Keefe D's lawyer. 8 News Las Vegas is the source.
No, I don't believe he's there.
The lawyer representing the man accused of orchestrating the murder of Tupac Shakur says we shouldn't believe his client as he prepares to represent him in what's being set up as the year's biggest trial. And tonight, that attorney is sitting down with one local journalist, and that's 8 News Now investigator David Sharns. Thanks for joining us. I'm Denise Valdez.
I'm Brian Loftus. Our 8 News Now investigators broke the news of the raid at Dwayne Keefe D. Davis's house. That set off his arrest and now his criminal case in the murder of the hip-hop icon.
And now his attorney says, don't believe him. Here's 8 News Now investigator David Charns with the interview you will only see on 8.
He's a liar, then. The statements.
I would definitely say he's a liar.
Defense attorney Carl Arnold
Wow.
says we shouldn't believe what 60-year-old Dwayne Keefe D. Davis has to say about the shooting of Tupac Shakur.
He keeps repeating this, is that the whole thing is unfair. He feels that he had protection from his earlier statements that were made.
Those earlier statements to police in California who were investigating not the death of Shakur, but the death of Notorious B.I.G.
He didn't have any information that said, hey, let me try to, rehash this Tupac murder, give you some information that he heard on the streets, and he filled in the gaps as they were asking questions.
Arnold says Davis lied about his alleged involvement in Shakur's murder, saying he was in the shooter's car and handed him the gun. That eventually unraveled, according to Arnold, where those private statements to police turned into public interviews, paid interviews.
He's sitting over there, how come I didn't make any money on this? And now someone's presenting him with the opportunity to make some money, combined with, okay, he's looking at these are his last years of life. Let me tell my story.
So isn't it kind of stupid to do that and then get hit with a murder charge?
Exactly.
Yeah, it was really stupid. But then again, here's what he's thinking is, he already said all these things way back when.
Arnold says it's now up to prosecutors to prove Davis's own statements are true beyond a reasonable doubt. And as far as Arnold knows, there's no video or DNA evidence to prove that. How do you defend those statements?
Again, there's no proof of that. That's the first thing.
So his own words you can't take for granted is what you're saying.
Correct. There has to be some type of corroboration. Anybody can say, well, I gave this person the gun and he shot Tupac.
So if he didn't do it, does he know who did?
No, he does not know who did.
And why should we trust Keefe D now?
You shouldn't trust Keefe D. You absolutely shouldn't. And that should be the thing that causes him to walk.
Arnold says he plans to subpoena Suge Knight for the trial. Knight is the only living witness and was driving the car Tupac was riding in. Arnold also says another witness we could hear from, Sean P. Diddy Combs. I'm David Charns, 8 News Now.
Davis $150,000 bail. Arnold and prosecutors back in court next week to tell a judge how their preparation for the scheduled fall trial is going.
Now imagine Suge Knight in court and P. Diddy in court. That's an iconic moment right there. So does Keefe D know what happened? Was he in Las Vegas? Where's the proof? Okay, the wife booked the hotel room in her name, and also Orlando booked a room at the Excalibur. So where are they getting this proof from? Because as they said, we're now in a digital age. Things were not digital back then, 30 years ago. They're 30 years ago. So where's the proof? We will see. Who has tell the truth about all this? What's disturbing is what this reporter said. Why in the world would you ever admit to a homicide? As to think of this as a way to make money because you got off on some other charge. See, none of that makes any sense. If I am going down on some charges and I'm wanting to tell something to try to help, so allegedly you told something about Biggie Smalls. That's what got all this mess started, allegedly. So you gave some information about Biggie Smalls. So then was that information also a lie? Because if you lie about Tupac's murder, then you'd lie about Biggie's murder. So make it make sense. I mean, seriously. If you lie about Tupac's murder, then you'll lie about Biggie's murder. What's the difference? So what was told, it's been a while since I've, heard all the he said, she said, and what he said about Biggie. Does he know who killed Biggie Smalls? Number one. Does he know who killed Tupac? Number two. Is he involved in the homicide of Tupac? What fool would tell anything on either? to make up something in order to get a plea. You mean to tell me of all the people you've known and gotten in trouble, men, women who've gotten in trouble in LA, these are the two people you would try to give information on as to help your own plea deal? That sounds so stupid. Does it sound stupid? Or I'm going to rely on this famous person, so I can get a plea deal on some old shit I did over here in LA. I'm trying to make that make some sense. Why not just make up some shit on some people out there in LA? Just saying. Why not? Oh, I get it. Because somebody would go back and tell those people. Some cop would go run his mouth and say, oh, yeah, Keefe D's in there singing about you. So he couldn't do that. So let me go make up something about some famous people. That's the only logic I could see behind him saying anything about Biggie Smalls and Tupac. He couldn't rat on somebody living and walking around or locked up, because it would probably get back. It would get back. And that'd be known, okay, as a rat to these people. I got to be able to live, have friends, family, walk around, LA, Compton, whatever. But I can make up some stuff about some famous people, no big deal. This is the craziest thing I ever heard in my life. So it's all this he said, she said in interviews to Vlad TV, different interviews with people just so he can make a quick buck. I don't see Suge Knight testify. I don't. Let's go back 9 months to how Dwayne got arrested. CNN is the source.
And I'm the homicide lieutenant with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. And my goal here today is to walk you through our investigation and what led us to the indictment of Dwayne Davis, also known as Keefe D, for the murder of Tupac Shakur. This case has been reviewed by our homicide team and homicide detectives for over 2.5 decades. And ultimately, our persistence in this investigation has paid off. Let me walk you through a timeline of events that as we know them right now. Prior to September 7th of 1996, as we all know, Tupac Shakur was an artist who was signed with Death Row Records. And that Death Row Records and its CEO, Marion Suge Knight, were closely affiliated with the Mob Piru criminal street gangs, and that they had an ongoing feud with the Southside Compton Crips. Dwayne Davis was the leader and shot caller of the Southside Compton Crips. And both of these gangs operated out of the Southern California area of Compton. On the night of September 7th of 1996, Tupac Shakur, along with Suge Knight, and members of their entourage, which include members of Mob Piru, came to Vegas to attend the Mike Tyson fight at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. Members of the Southside Compton Crips, which included Dwayne Davis, along with his nephew, Orlando Anderson, were also in attendance at the same event. As both were leaving the fight, members of Death Row Records spotted Orlando Anderson near an elevator bank inside the MGM. And at that time, they began to kick and punch him near that elevator bank. I will now show you hotel security footage, as many of you have already seen, related to this incident. And on this incident, you will see Tupac Shakur, who's wearing a shiny satiny shirt, along with Marion Suge Knight, who's a large man in a brown suit, punching and kicking Orlando Anderson.
So there's your connection there.
Following this incident, you'll see hotel security intervene, and then they will leave the area of the fight.
So let's interject there. So how is Keefe D going to put P. Diddy into this nonsense? If you were there, your nephew was there, you all went there for the fight, they were there for the fight, Tupac and Suge and other entourage with them, how would P. Diddy fit into that? Help me understand. And then your nephew just so happens to be beat up by Tupac and these guys. Just so happened. So what was that, staged? Makes no sense. So you all had a beef in the street that wouldn't have anything to do with Sean Combs. or any other entity, because your nephew, who's no longer alive, did get beat up, and they have it on camera to show the connection that he got beat up by the now late Tupac. So how are you going to throw other people into it? Good God Almighty. Can't make this stuff up. 1 second, everybody. Just ridiculous.
Little did anyone know that it is this incident right here that would ultimately lead to the retaliatory shooting and death of Tupac Shakur.
Well, we already heard that.
Following this incident, Tupac and Suge Knight both left the MGM to make their way to a post-fight party, which was to occur at a local nightclub. At the same time, word had spread amongst members of the Southside Compton Crips of what had occurred inside the MGM. And then that's when Dwayne Davis began to devise a plan to obtain a firearm and retaliate against Suge Knight and Mr. Shakur for what occurred inside the hotel against Mr. Anderson. After Davis obtained a gun, he entered into a white Cadillac along with Terrence Brown, DeAndre Smith, and Orlando Anderson. Based on our investigation, this is where we know they were seated. At some point in time, as they were in the white Cadillac, Mr. Davis took the gun that he had obtained and provided it to the passengers in the rear seat of the vehicle. As they were driving west on Flamingo Road near Koval, they located the black BMW, which was driven by Suge Knight, and in the passenger seat was Tupac Shakur. And as they turned around, they pulled up near the passenger side of that vehicle and immediately began shooting at Mr. Knight and Mr. Shakur. Following that shooting, the white Cadillac fled the area southbound on Koval. And after our officers arrived on scene, Tupac was later transported to the University Medical Center, where he was treated medically and died approximately 6 days later on September 13th. My homicide section handled this investigation from its onset and for a short amount of time. And within a short amount of time, what we knew was that we were working a gang investigation where our victims, our witnesses, and our suspects were all from Southern California and not local to Las Vegas. Within the first few months of the investigation, our detectives knew most of the information I just briefed you on. However, we never had the necessary evidence to bring this case forward and present it for criminal charges. As time went on, this case had been reviewed multiple times by different investigators assigned to my section, but it wasn't until 2018 that this case was reinvigorated as additional information came to light related to this homicide. Specifically, Dwayne Davis's own admissions to his involvement in this homicide investigation that he provided to numerous different media outlets. In our section, we knew at this time that this was likely our last time to take a run at this case to successfully solve this case and bring forth a criminal charge. It was at that time that this case was assigned to Cliff Mogg, a detective within my homicide section. And over the last 5 years, my section worked closely, hand in hand with the Clark County District Attorney's Office, and followed a systematic investigative plan over the last 5 years. We've conducted countless interviews and corroborated numerous facts that were not only consistent with the crime scene on the night of the incident, but also corroborated and were consistent with the sequence of events that night. This ultimately led to us procuring a search warrant, which was executed at Mr. Davis's residence in Henderson, Nevada. And following the execution of that search warrant, in close coordination with the District Attorney's Office, this case was presented to the grand jury, which ultimately led to Davis being indicted on charges of murder.
An arrest and indictment in the murder of legendary rapper Tupac Shakur. Really, investigators are going into stunning detail about how his murder was a retaliatory killing, that an investigation in which They knew soon after the murder of Tupac around September of 1996, the details of, but a case that went cold until 2018, and now one that is headed potentially for a conviction.
They showed this surveillance video and they said this is a moment, this altercation, that ultimately led to that moment on September 7th, 1996, on the Las Vegas Strip, where someone pulled up multiple people in a white Cadillac, they believe, and shot into the passenger side of Tupac Shakur's vehicle, ultimately killing him. Days later, he died in a hospital. But I think people are in disbelief today. Fans of his music, people who knew him, his family as well, they've carried this hurt for so long. And now knowing that police have arrested someone, also they said there were 3 other suspects, but all of them are deceased.
Yeah, and the arrest they made, you're looking at the mugshot.
What are the odds of that?
Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, a 60-year-old man who they describe, investigators, as the head of a rival gang that had issues with Tupac and his cohort. Let's discuss these latest details with CNN's Josh Campbell, and also with us, CNN legal analyst Joey Jackson. Josh, first to you. There was a lot of detail in what we just heard from investigators there, going over all the evidence that they collected.
Absolutely. And, this is where the timeline of this murder comes into play here. So important. We know that after Tupac Shakur left the boxing match, it was a white Cadillac that pulled up alongside his vehicle. Shakur was in the car with Suge Knight whenever those shots rang out. Now, interestingly enough, Dwayne Davis, the suspect who has now been charged here, indicted in Nevada, he gave public statements. This is something that the officer alluded to there shortly, saying some of his own comments are being used here now as evidence, particularly if you look back, for example, in 1998. Davis gave an interview to BET saying he was inside that other car. He said he was in the front seat. He claimed that the shots actually rang out from the back seat. He refused to publicly name who else might be in that car, saying that that's the code of the street, that he didn't want to, run amiss, I guess, a video of his cohorts there in the gang. But there was this question about, okay, so you're there. What other role did you have? Interestingly, we also just heard, as the prosecutor talked about the law here as it applies, he said you don't have to actually be the person to pull the trigger in order to be charged with murder in the state of Nevada. So we start to see these elements start to shape up. If he was in the vehicle as he claimed, and that actually plays into the law that you don't have to pull the trigger to also be charged with murder, police believe that he was, as they described, the shot caller here, the person who devised this plan to retaliate against Shakur and ultimately lead to this murder, guys.
When I think about your childhood, growing up under this shadow of communism.
Ooh, sorry about that commercial. Oh, stupid. All right. I don't know why that jumped off. What a mess. Let me see.
First to you, there was a lot of detail in what we just heard from investigators there, going over all the evidence that they collected.
Absolutely. And, this is where the timeline of this murder comes into play here. So important. We know that after Tupac Shakur left the boxing match, it was a white Cadillac that pulled up alongside his vehicle. Shakur was in the car with Suge Knight whenever those shots rang out. Now, interestingly enough, Dwayne Davis, the suspect who has now been charged here, indicted in Nevada, he gave public statements. This is something that the officer alluded to there shortly, saying some of his own comments are being used here now as evidence, particularly if you look back, for example, in 1998. Davis gave an interview to BET saying he was inside that other car. He said he was in the front seat. He claimed that the shots actually rang out from the back seat. He refused to publicly name who else might be in that car, saying that that's the code of the street, that he didn't want to, run amiss, I guess, a video of his cohorts there in the gang. But there was this question about, okay, so you're there. What other role did you have? Interestingly, we also just heard, as the prosecutor talked about the law here as it applies, he said you don't
have to actually be the person to pull the trigger in order to be charged with murder in the state of Nevada. So we start to see these elements start to shape up. If he was in the vehicle as he claimed, and that actually plays into the law that you don't have to pull the trigger to also be charged with murder, police believe that he was, as they described, the shot caller here, the person who devised this plan to retaliate against Shakur and ultimately lead to this murder, guys.
Well, I believe that was always the rumor in the street anyway, that all this stemmed from the fight that took place in that lobby. That's always been the rumor in the street. So why would you tell BET 2 years later? Because that's soon, that you were in the car, but I can't tell you who did it. That's stupid. So did they ever link the car to any of those people? The white Cadillac. Because we had already heard that over the years, detectives on both sides of the coin got wind of all this wrangling with Keefe D's legal issues and charges, some type of alpha plea. And I never could understand that. He's going down for other drug charges or other crimes. And somehow this Tupac murder comes up, and you all going to give him an alpha plea of killing a man out in the open or free pass versus what crimes he had going on and took a plea. That makes no sense to me. That don't even sound right. It just don't sound legally right. Oh, here, we'll give you a plea. In order for you to get off on these charges you've got here in LA, you tell us what you know about this, or he jumps up and say, hey, I'll tell you about what happened with Tupac or Biggie. This sounds so stupid to me. Oh, yeah, okay, you tell us this information, we're going to let you go. That don't even sound right. But what's sad is that all these detectives allegedly heard these stories 1,001 times. Something is, I don't understand any of this nonsense. 6 months ago, Law and Crime Network, jailhouse calls. Can't stop talking. You're not a snitch, but you don't mind talking on a cell phone and jailhouse phones. Everybody knows they're recorded. Come on.
Big boy in the head. I thought he was dead. Like, damn, he's dead.
Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, accused of ordering the murder of Tupac Shakur, wants out of jail on bail. But prosecutors say they have him on jail calls talking about possibly killing a witness. So will Keefe D be released? And just how tough of a gangster was he? A former Compton gang cop is here to tell us. I'm Anjanette Levy. It's Friday, and this is Crime Fix, Law and Crime's look at the biggest stories in the world of crime. Dwayne Keefe D. Davis faces a murder charge in Las Vegas. He's accused of ordering the murder of rapper Tupac Shakur back in 1996. We've told you before that Tupac, Death Row Records CEO Suge Knight, and others jumped Keefe D's nephew, Orlando Anderson, after the Mike Tyson fight at the MGM Grand on a night in September of 1996. Keefe D, according to prosecutors, and his own words for that matter, wasn't having it. He's accused of ordering the murder of Tupac Shakur and giving his nephew the gun to carry it out. Keefe D, Orlando Anderson, Terrence Brown, and DeAndre Smith were all riding in a white Cadillac when they pulled up next to the BMW Suge Knight was driving and Orlando Anderson fired. Keefe D wrote about this in his book, Compton Street Legend, and he's talked about that night in several interviews.
Y'all was actually waiting at 662 for Tupac and Orlando to fight, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about that, because Orlando actually wanted to fight Tupac. Right?
Yeah, you're going to get his ass knocked out. So I was laying at hands. One promise.
Oh, for real, he had hands?
Oh, hell yeah, my God. Yeah.
So tell me about that. Orlando
Sounds
said he wanted to fight Tupac and have a heads up with him.
We just, I was going to tell Suge, let him get out. That's all. You just going to beat his ass.
Now, it's important to point out that Keefe D thought he had immunity, but he didn't, since he told this story to police back in the mid-2000s as part of a proffer in his drug case.
Yeah, proper
Keefe D
plea,
is
sorry.
asking a judge to let him out of jail on bail He says he's 60 now, he's in remission for cancer, and isn't a danger to the community. But prosecutors are opposing that request. They say Keefe D is on jail calls, furious with witnesses who testified at the grand jury against him, and his son is talking about a green light on their side. A green light, prosecutors say, is an authorization to kill, and the feds are even providing resources to one witness so he could move. So how big of a gangster was Keefe D in all actuality? I talked to former Compton Gang Unit Officer Bobby.
Let me stop right there. If all this is made up, Keefe D, then why are you ordering the hit on a witness? You made it all up, remember? Your lawyer even says you're a liar, don't believe you. So why do you need to kill a witness if all these stories are made up about being in the car, handing a gun to Orlando? Why would you need to order the hit? And you're talking on a jail phone. Are you serious? God, you just stupid person.
Author of Once Upon a Time in Compton, to find out.
I had many contacts with Keefe D. I say I grew up with him because I was only 23 years old when I started, and he was a few years younger than me, but I started and I watched this guy grow up in the neighborhood. We used to chase him around in the Southside area. We even arrested him at one time, so it's like I saw him become this star, just selling narcotics as a street little dealer. I saw him become this huge narcotics dealer that he ended up selling narcotics all the way across the country. So I watched him become a shot caller within the Southside Crips gang.
So tell me, how big of a drug dealer was Keefe D? Some people think that he has kind of bragged and overstated his importance or his kind of level that he reached in that drug trade. I mean, was he as big of a drug dealer as he claims to be?
He really was. He was the real deal. The reason I know this because Compton, like I say, was a small city, and we worked the gang unit, and we were inundated with shootings and murders. We didn't have the resources or the manpower to go after somebody that's selling narcotics across the country like Keefe D was. So during my time in the gang unit, I was hit up numerous times by FBI task force and DEA task force that wanted to go after Keefe D. So they would tell me what he was doing, and so we would exchange information. We'd give him, all the people he's hanging around with and his associates. We exchange information, and they told us way back then that, hey man, this guy's running major kilos and ECP all the way across the United States. So he really was the real deal.
Ladd testified at the grand jury as a gang expert about life in Compton and what happened after Tupac was murdered.
At the night Tupac was shot, my partner Tim and I, we were on our days off, and we get a call from our boss, Reggie Wright Sr., and he tells us about the shooting, and he goes, hey man, we're here in the Southside Crips. That's the information I'm getting, and the war is coming back to Compton. You guys just beware, get ready, because it's coming back. And sure enough, a couple days later, we had our first shooting. We were on our days off, but Reggie had called us in. One of the OGs from Southside Crips was shot, and a 10-year-old little girl got shot in crossfire. She was in critical condition, so he said, hey man, you guys need to get your butts down here so these guys see you driving around the city, right? When we got there that day, it was kind of eerie because Compton's usually bustling, man. People everywhere, people at the parks, everything, and we were driving around and there was nobody out. I mean, it was weird. We were like looking at each other, go, man, these people know the streets talk,
Yeah, they do.
We were driving around and we didn't see anybody out at the time. It was kind of weird. So we knew something was coming. And sure enough, it did.
Ladd also told me they knew days after Tupac was shot who was responsible.
See, that right there.
Informants call us that 2 days later, right? Cadillac was already gone. So on this street on Alondra, there was a car shop where they repaired cars, and a lot of Crips and hung out there. It was a known place. We got a call from our informant, and they said that Gary Monk and I think it was Orlando brought this car into their place. They had a bullet hole in the back.
Wow.
Right? And they repaired it and let him go, but our informant didn't call us till 2 days later. So we were pissed about that, right? But we were never able to track down that Cadillac with supposedly a bullet hole in it because I guess Huntry was supposedly shot back at the Cadillac after they shot Tupac and Suge in Vegas.
So if they knew all of this,
Right.
why was no one arrested for 27 years? Glad.
So where did the Cadillac go? Come on now. Where did the Cadillac end up? Didn't end up in the ocean. You mean tell me you all couldn't trace a Cadillac? Because it had to have been painted and then it had to also get tags. But the VIN number is engraved inside of the car. Everybody knows this. This is bullshit.
Says the answer is simple. No one was cooperating.
You know, you have to have people who are there that's going to ID somebody, you know. So I always put it on Suge Knight because he was the one that was there, and I believe that he saw EPD. You know, they grew up together, and
oh, did they? I didn't know that.
Kind of person. He already said it. Hey, let the police do it. But he could have said it. He could have told the truth 27 years ago, and we probably wouldn't be going through this now.
Well, if they grew up together, if you grew up with Keefe D, why didn't you have somebody handle Keefe D? You like orchestrating shit. You talk a lot of junk. You've already killed somebody your damn self. So why didn't you order somebody to hit on Keefe D and Orlando and all the rest of them? Because as they're saying, the streets talk. That was the rumor a long time ago that what happened in the hotel or at this fight had everything to do with Tupac's death. So if you knew and saw who it was, the car was familiar, people talk, and you're from California. Keefe D was from California. Another streets were talking. Why didn't you handle it? Help me understand. Because a lot of people were intimidated by your fat face. So why didn't you exact revenge for your friend? Because you could have been shot yourself. So help us understand. Because a lot of people feel like you were involved as well. Don't know if that's true, but he's your friend. But what did you tell Barbara Walters years ago? It's not for me to say who shot him. That's when I knew then that you were just a sack of shit. You're sitting in a car and a man gets shot in your car. He's your protege. He's working on your label. Some people are saying he was trying to get off your label. Don't know if that's true or not. But the point is, you were in that car. You could have easily died yourself, and you don't even think to at least have somebody pay Keefe D a visit. Come on now. Big Bad, Suge. Oh, God, I'm sick.
That's what I just put it on Suge Knight. Because gang cases are really, really hard. I've investigated thousands of gang cases, and they're hard to prove, man, because nobody wants to be involved.
Joining me to discuss this claim by prosecutors in Keefe D's case is Adrienne Lobo. She's a criminal defense attorney in Las Vegas. Adrienne, welcome back to Crime Fix. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Adrienne, prosecutors are saying, look, there is plenty of evidence to show that Keefe D ordered Tupac Shakur's murder. And not only that, but we have jail calls where it appears he's talking with his son about possibly harming a witness. We don't know exactly which witness it is, but they say that the feds have stepped in and are helping provide protection to at least one witness in this case. So what do you make of the prosecution's claim and how that bodes for Keefe D's effort to get out on bail?
Right. Words matter. They're critical within the context of all, and a whole transcript should be produced and the actual audio recording of that call. Within the context of the quotes that are mentioned in the opposition, it appears as though that they're saying that the green light on them. And so it says on them. So that semantics matters, right? The way when I initially read it is that it could be interpreted that somebody could have hit on, of course, Dwayne Davis's family or somebody associated with them. And then perhaps in retaliation, we have the quote I mentioned talking about, we're made for war, but saying we're made for war. They say we're made for war. So it's not as though it's an affirmative possessory statement that they're making that would affirmatively show that. Words do matter. I know that if there is concern, that's always something in any criminal case about witness intimidation and dissuasion and, keeping people safe.
The prosecution was concerned enough, though, that they got some type of federal assistance to keep Devontae Lee safe. Devontae Lee testified at the grand jury that one of the people in the white Cadillac that night said, that he's saying that DeAndre Smith Big Dre said, no, it was actually me who shot him, not Orlando. However, he's still putting Keefe D in the car and saying Keefe D is the one that, said this should all happen. And that's hearsay, of course, but it's still somebody who testified at grand jury. The thing that I think is so wild about this is that Keefe D's mouth is what's gotten him in trouble up to this point. Now he can't stop talking in jail on jail calls. Everybody knows those are recorded. He knows the drill. He knows those things are recorded.
And I think why the hesitation on my part is that could he really be that short-sighted, right? And I have to imagine, I've been a defense attorney for 17 years. I know the defense attorneys in his case, and I know that we strongly admonish our clients to not speak about any sort of matters, such as, the litigation of the case, witnesses, who we're hiring, etc. Because it's all free game, right? And we say, do not talk on those phone calls, period. And so the fact that this statement was made, as an attorney or a defense attorney, I would want to know what the surrounding framework of that conversation to it. And if federal assistance was given, that is okay. That's routinely given, both in state and federal matters. In criminal cases, witnesses can apply for, funds to supplement rent, moving expenses, things like that. So it's pretty routine, these state side of things that I've seen. So I don't necessarily know that is something that is going to be like the linchpin, but I understand the need for it, to err on the side of caution in the meantime to make sure that, this is appropriately vetted.
Adrienne Lobo, thanks again for coming on. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you so much.
She don't have to worry about it.
Keefe D will be back.
She don't have to worry about it because she's not involved, so she can give ill advice. It's crazy. Law and Crime Network is the source of that information. CNN was my other source. The black BMW that Suge Knight and Tupac were in was on sale last year for $1.75 million. I've shared it to my community post, and I'll play a little bit of that here in just a second after I play this other news briefing. Then I'll check out of here. Thank you all so much for joining me. KTNV News 13 is the source.
5 at 5, more information about what a grand jury saw before they decided to indict Dwayne Keefe D. Davis in the murder of Tupac Shakur nearly 30 years ago. Thank you so much for joining us. Live at 5, I'm Trisha Keene. Channel 13 has obtained newly released video and photos, part of the evidence seen by the grand jury. And our Brian Horwath has more on what it all means.
It's becoming more apparent that Dwayne Keefe D. Davis likely talked himself into his own indictment nearly 3 decades after the murder of Tupac Shakur.
We now know more evidence considered by a Clark County grand jury in returning an indictment against Dwayne Keefe D. Davis. It consists mainly of Davis's own words gathered over the past few years from interviews he gave.
I got no reason to lie.
In various public forums on YouTube and in an autobiography, Davis described the events that brought down the rap legend.
Y'all need to come buy my book, Confidence is a Street Legend. It's a good read, man. It's nothing but the truth.
Davis admitted to being
God, he can't even talk.
People in the infamous white Cadillac that fateful September night. He says his crew noticed Tupac because the rapper was hanging out of the front passenger side window of a black BMW driven by Suge Knight along Flamingo Road near the Strip.
Shit, he had half his body out the window. Yeah.
Contrary to what gang member Denvonta Lee told the grand jury, jurors heard Davis claim in an interview with Urban City TV it was Orlando Anderson, his nephew, who shot Shakur on September 7th, 1996.
he gave the gun to Orlando, and Orlando shot Tupac and Suge.
Yeah, he did his thing, yeah.
Davis also said after the shooting, his crew went back to their strip hotel to pop bottles.
Did nobody know but us four that was in the car?
The other three men in that car with Davis are now all deceased, and investigators say it's unlikely Davis would have ever been arrested if he hadn't opened his mouth.
Orlando.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I said, oh, this time can't be telling nobody. That's the only way you're going to stay free.
Davis is set to be arraigned on a single charge of murder before district court.
Let me go back to that comment.
Yeah.
The car with Davis are now all deceased, and investigators say it's unlikely Davis would have ever been arrested if he hadn't opened his mouth.
Orlando, not to tell nobody, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I said, oh, this time can't be telling nobody. That's the only way you're going to stay free.
Davis is set to be arraigned on a single charge of murder before District Court Judge Tierra Jones Wednesday morning. Reporting from the Regional Justice Center, I'm Brian Horwath.
Channel 13 News. Huh. All of this is just ridiculous. Stupid, stupid, stupid. 13 Las Vegas is the source of this information.
In the vehicle. This is so bizarre. This is the original seat that Tupac was in. One car, one legendary murder mystery in Las Vegas. Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight were riding in this black BMW on September 7th, 1996, when Tupac was gunned down in the passenger seat.
It's been a long time. I was born here. I grew up here. I remember that happening, but yeah, it's flown by for sure.
The BMW was a car leased to Death Row Records, the label owned by Suge Knight.
So when it was totaled and shot up, it went through back to a salvage yard, fixed up. Probably didn't really know it was going to have any historical significance at that point. It was fixed and then sold to the general public, probably at an auction, something like that.
Ryan Hamilton, general manager of Celebrity Cars, says it was sold multiple times, and several people drove around in it, not knowing the history it carried, until nearly 4 years ago when a local collector realized what he had. Celebrity Cars is selling it for $1.75 million.
We've had actually a lot of international interest, and those tend to be the more serious buyers. It is a worldwide phenomenon of what Tupac is and what he did.
It has created a lot of buzz for the Las Vegas company. And following the home search of Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, interest is growing once again. Hamilton says he understands the fascination and allure of the car because it's a story that people are drawn to. But the car has its own mystery as well.
There was a actually hidden weapon compartment in the side door, which is still there. We still haven't opened it.
That's right, a secret compartment. And this is a normal one. So this one's sealed. It's on the driver's side door. Hamilton says that it is sealed and appears to have a mechanical release for it. He says he believes Suge Knight used it to store a gun.
It definitely was probably a firearm at some point. I think it's probably just sealed up at this point. I don't think there's probably anything in it. But it's, your guess is as good as mine, I guess.
So you ain't curious to open it.
Chris Carroll,
Stupid.
if anything was ever found in there. And he says no weapon was found that night. But Hamilton feels it's just something else that makes this an important historical collector's item. And he expects the value of the BMW to continue to increase over time.
I would compare it to a piece of art. I wouldn't compare it to a typical car. It's not going to have a depreciation.
That was Trisha Keene reporting. Ryan Hamilton from Celebrity Cars told us yesterday that car is still up for sale. We'll continue to follow the murder investigation. So for the latest updates, head over to our website, ktnv.com.
All right, News 13. Well, let's see if the car has ever been sold. Oh, Lordy. Crazy. What I find interesting, she's asking him about the compartment, and he's acting like, no, I don't know anything about it, or I ain't inquired. Why would you not want to check just to see? Just to see, that it can open. Strange. You're selling a car, and you haven't opened the secret compartment? That's weird to me. Sweet Jesus. Hold on one second, everybody. Wow. Blind leading the blind. Okay, so far it's still in stock. The car, 1.7 million, 1.75 million as of July 26, 2023. And then August 6th, still available. I don't see anything else to show it's been bought. August. So if you got almost $2 million, you can purchase a car from Celebrity Cars. Since the car has been listed for sale for years in Las Vegas for $1.75 million with a luxury dealer, it just sits there and returns to the spotlight. Yeah, I guess so. And now U.S. Sun has an article for this year in February saying 1.39, but that's, of course, that's English money. 1.39. So that's the latest, 1.75, the car, the BMW. And the reason why I did this live stream is because there's new information pertaining to both Keefe D and his nephew Orlando were in Las Vegas the night of Tupac's murder. We heard that Orlando was the guy who got beat up in that lobby. We also have confirmation, allegedly, that his wife, Miss Clemens, she booked the hotel room at the Monte Carlo, which is now another name. Another name. I think it's MGM Grand. And Orlando booked a room at the Excalibur Hotel and Casino. So there we have it. And they're also checking to see if any other gang members affiliated with them were at neighboring hotels. Naturally, everything's digital now, so they're having to go back and look through actual manual paperwork. I don't know how long hotels keep paperwork, because as I said, everything's digital now. Everything's on the computer, websites. So we live in a digital age through computers, and just about everything's done, by computers. So we will see if any other gang members, living and or deceased, can be tracked to any neighboring hotels or hotels that either one of these figures were in. But as they said in the article that I read at the beginning of this live stream, they didn't think anything about the woman's name on the paperwork for the hotel because she wasn't a gang member. But if she was indeed dating him or married to him at the time, seems like to me, wouldn't you inquire that? Because hotels still had criteria in checking in, and decent hotels, were they taking cash money back then, or were they taking credit cards, debit cards? See, you got to ask all that, because these weren't, I don't think, rinky-dink hotels. So I'm assuming you need a credit card to check in. So what, Orlando had a credit card to check into a hotel, or did they take cash? Don't know. But that's the latest. That's the content for this live stream. Feel free to go back to the beginning of this live to get the information. The Sun is the source if you need verification for the information. So to recap, evidence shows that Keefe D's wife booked a room at the Monte Carlo. And the nephew, Orlando Anderson, who is now deceased, booked a room at the Excalibur. I want to thank you all for joining me. God bless all of you. When I get more information, any updates pertaining to this case, I will bring you that information. We will see next week if Dwayne will get a bond or at least get released. I'm praying that he doesn't. But if they have a witness already and witness protection, I don't see them letting him out. I just don't. And I also like to know, what did they seize at the house last year when they exacted the raid? Because I do believe they said there was a lot of content, readable content on the case itself in Dwayne's possession. He had a lot of content on Tupac's shooting. And it's just interesting information because, someone might say, why do you have so much content on the crime? Like books, magazines, it's just like more like, I guess, a collection items. Why would you have this much, paraphernalia on a dead man? And some people might say, well, that doesn't mean a person killed somebody just because they've got magazines and articles pertaining to the murder of Tupac. But they've got something from his home. That was the purpose of raiding it. And remember, when they raided it, he didn't immediately get arrested when they raided the house. But they returned with an arrest shortly after the raid, if I'm not mistaken. About a week or two later, he got arrested. So we're going to see if he'll be free next week, if a judge will let him walk out, probably on an ankle bracelet and or bond. And this WAC 100, allegedly, the judge wanted to know, where did the money come from? And then we have to also ask ourselves, WAC 100, why would you want to offer up bond for him? Oh, just so you can do commentaries, TV series. So allegedly he's a liar. So if he's a liar, and that's what his lawyer is saying, why would you want to offer him money for a bond in exchange to do a TV series or more interviews? That doesn't make any sense. So one would say, you want to make more money out your pocket off of Keefe D and his testimony in alleged lies, and or you're favoring him in what he's done. Take your pick. I don't trust anybody right now, because everybody's just clown ass to me. And it's all BS. Suge Knight, he's a clown. Anybody favoring and running behind Keefe D, they're a clown. Because there's something to it. And the best proof is the actual footage of Tupac and Suge and other gang members fighting Orlando and their guys in that damn lobby. Because what are the odds? Tupac and Suge and these other guys are beating Orlando up. And then later that night, don't know the timeline, 1 hour, 2, 3, whatever, they just so happen to run up beside him and Suge in a car and allegedly shoot them. Just saying. Testimony from different people in the street, and then this motor mouth here, Mr. Dwayne. And then the other 3 people who were in the car, they're dead. He's the only one living. 60-year-old man. 7 years older than Tupac. Why? Is it true that he was in the car with Orlando and these other men, and Orlando unalive Tupac, or some other person unalive Tupac? I'm trying to understand this Devontae Lee business, his role, trying to understand who he is and his role in this debacle. Let me pull up something right quick before I check out here, because it's egging me right now. Hold on 1 second, and we'll see who he is in his role in this nonsense. Because his name was also mentioned in that article briefly. They got a guy with the same name, plays football. It's not the one I'm looking for. Let's see. I have to put Tupac in there. Let's see. All right. This goes back November 26, 23. Let's get a brief synopsis here. It says self-confessed gangster Dwayne Keefe D. Davis is livid that former gang member and homie gone rogue Devontae Lee gave evidence against him for the recent grand jury hearings and will do it again at the 2025 trial. So that's where it comes in. Keefe and his legal team believe Lee's comments should be dismissed as hearsay for the upcoming trial rather than be viewed as bombshell testimony, a source told The Sun. Nonetheless, Keefe is pissed at having to deal with this, given that Lee was in jail, not Las Vegas, during the tragic weekend Tupac was shot. So allegedly, Lee was in jail and not in Las Vegas when this transpired. Keefe is ready to have his legal team tear apart comments from Lee, claiming that he knew little about his life or world. Well, Lee's testimony places Keefe at the scene of the Tupac assassination, September 7, 1996. He was roommates with DeAndre Big Dre Smith, who was in the white Cadillac that chased Tupac and Suge Knight across Las Vegas on the night they were shot. Well, I didn't know that they were chasing him. I thought they just rolled up beside him. Interesting. Lee described how Big Dre informed him that Keefe was in charge of the car, which was driven by Terrence T. Brown, and had nephew Orlando Baby Lane Anderson in the rear seat. One bombshell comment from Lee alleges how Keefe was pivotal in the kill. They got on the side of him. Keefe handed the gun to Lane. Okay. To Lane. So that was Orlando's name, Baby Lane Anderson. Orlando Baby Lane Anderson. So he's saying Keefe gave him the gun, handed him the gun. Lee told the jury Keefe was the one who had handled the night's arrangements and also claimed to have had to go to another gang kingpin named Eric Von Zip Martin to get a Glock pistol for a potential attack. Las Vegas District Attorney is using Lee's evidence to help build a murder case against Keefe. Okay. Somebody says Keefe is simply pissed off with this little homie trying to make his life hell. An acquaintance of Keefe revealed his family all think this man wants to make a name for himself in the trial and get famous. He is a homie gone rogue. There's no love lost between them. They all ran in the same world and lifestyle, but had some kind of difference, which we are not sure of at the moment. Yeah, what would that be? He is told by his lawyers that this testimony should not really hold up. It is just hearsay. Lee was not in Vegas at all when all this went down or straight after. It is his second-hand report of what it's Big Dre supposedly said. And of course, Dre is dead, so those words cannot be questioned. Gang members should not snitch, but let's be honest. To some of them guys, Keefe doesn't abide by the rules either, as he's been talking for years about Pac. Transcripts of grand jury testimony obtained by the U.S. Sun Lee detailed the key moments surrounding the shooting of Tupac. So it goes into the information we've already heard about them being in the white Cadillac. So is it true? Big Dre told Levante, that they all were in the car together and Orlando or whomever shot Tupac. Don't know what's the truth. But if the U.S. government is using him as a witness, then they obviously believe it. So it'll be up to 12 members of a jury to say yes or no that they believe it. And what else evidence they have from the house, other eyewitnesses' testimony, we will see. If you'd like to donate to welcome to the live stream. Thank you all so much for your time. I'll be back with more stimulating content. Please check out my live stream from yesterday. I did two. One's pertaining to a woman in Atlanta who's been found dead inside of a car at the Atlanta MARTA station, one of the MARTA stations. She also lost her son, Jamirin, in September of 2022 to a murder. It has not been solved. And then months before that, in April 2022, her brother was found dead in his apartment in Atlanta from an attempted robbery. He had won $4,000 from a cash slot machine. So she lost her brother in April 2022, her son in September 2022. He was 13. No suspects in either case. And now she has been found deceased inside of a car in the back seat. Is it homicide, natural causes? They said the boyfriend has showed up without her. Allegedly, she was going to Macon, Georgia. So number one, whose car is it? How did she get in the back seat of that car? And what does the boyfriend have to say? And also in that live stream, I discussed a terrible, terrible, horrific case here in Tennessee, Humboldt, Tennessee, where a young Black girl, 12 years old, killed her female cousin, 8 years old, over an iPhone disagreement. She suffocated her to death with bedding. It is on camera. They had surveillance cameras in the bedrooms, and it is the eyewitness to homicide. She cleaned the little girl up with tissue paper and papers and repositioned her body, which is a very bizarre case here in Tennessee. 12-year-old killing her own 8-year-old cousin over a damn iPhone. Please check out that live stream from yesterday. And also, the earlier live, I played you audio from a social media account of someone that I know. He just found out that his son of 26 years is not his biological son. And he found out last week. He went and got a DNA test for some reason. Obviously, he suspected the boy was not his child. He conducted this test, and now he knows the child is not his. You can hear his testimony during a live stream to Facebook, and I played that audio during my live. I asked him to come on to the panel to speak, but he did not want to come. He felt like the audio would be sufficient enough for his story. So feel free to go to my community page to give your opinion pertaining to that testimony. And also you are welcome to comment under the video pertaining to his newfound news of not being the biological father of his 26-year-old son. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay hydrated, stay cool. And as I said, check on the elderly to make sure they have what they need in these hot temperatures, because we want to keep everyone safe from the heat. So if they can use an extra fan, please feel free to, help them out if you can. God bless all of you. You've been listening to the Vault XL.